we're all guilty of making some mistakes in the gym at some point, and I include myself in that.
You're being too soft here, Aaron. Come on.
being diplomatic.
Yeah.
Because look, there's plenty of mistakes that occur in there. And I guess if we're just reviewing like on a subset of cycling athletes who are taking their cycling seriously.
Recreational and amateurs who are watching this.
Yeah.
And we might have a few pros watching this.
Might be a few pros, who knows? Who generally have a keen interest in their cycling. Then if we review mistakes in the gym in that context, then probably the biggest mistake I would say is that athletes are training to repetition failure on their strength training exercises.
Which is what I was doing when you work with me as
well.
Right. Very common.
That's right, people do it. I think I saw some questions in your community section on your page of people asking about failure training as well. So those unfamiliar with repetitions to failure training or just failure training, it just means you have a weight on a given exercise and you do as many reps as you can until you can't do any more.
Yep.
That's failure training. And it feels good and you get the pump and kind of fills out your shirt if you're doing some upper body stuff, or the quads get a nice pump out of it.
It feels practical or logical that you should do that.
It feels logical, yeah. You're taking yourself to the edge of your abilities.
Yep.
And makes perfect sense. It's just from a research perspective, if we look at that data on it, then it becomes a mistake for athletes that are also doing gym to support cycling, for example.
Yep.
And here's the reason, and there's two reasons to back up my mistake, so bear with me. The first one is we've known certainly for at least the last 10 years, but more recently some research was produced by a fantastic sports science researcher called Dr. Jozo Grgic. He's done some excellent research in this space.
Good name pronunciation as well.
And he lives in Australia as well, I believe. He's a legend. And so he's produced some research, I think it was around 2021, where he synthesized all the research and reviewed it that was looking at the effects on strength and muscle growth in people that were training repetitions to failure and not to failure, and going, okay, are the strength outcomes comparable? Are the muscle growth outcomes comparable? And what his synthesis of the literature revealed was there is no difference. So provided like your weight is the same, and I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you're lifting 100 kilos for 8 reps on the squat and that's your failure. You can't do any more.
Yep.
What if you did instead of 8 reps, 5 reps and did that 100 kilos? Your body is still getting like the impulse stimulus of that weight. You're just not going to the failure point. And research says you are going to get the same strength outcomes regardless. And so you might be like, okay, so maybe I'm pushing myself too much in the gym for no extra beneficial gain if I'm training to failure. Correct. But that's not the biggest reason why I say that's a mistake. Is the second half of the argument is if you are training to failure on a strength exercise in the gym, we know the time course to recover is much longer compared to someone that didn't train to failure.
The DOMs.
That's right.
That's what I was getting really badly when I was doing this.
That's right. Yeah. So I'm giving you an example. There's an interesting study that came out 8 years ago by Gonzalez Badillo in 2016. And this is typical of the literature in this space. He got 9 trained males and he said, okay, let's do 3 sets of 8 repetitions at the heaviest weight you can do, which would be equivalent of about 80% of 1 repetition maximum. And then we're going to monitor your HRV and your jump performance at immediately after exercise, 6 hours later, 24 hours later, and 48 hours later. And so for the group that was training to failure, what he found was that HRV had a very big drop after the workout, quite pronounced. And then with respect to jump performance, we found that after 48 hours, the athletes were still not back to jumping the same height that they could before the workout. They're actually only achieving 96% of that jump performance.
Interesting.
Now, people listening at home might say, well, I'm a cyclist, why am I jumping? In sports science, we use the jump test as an indirect measurement of neuromuscular fatigue. So what that research was highlighting, those 9 males who were doing the heavy squats for 3 sets of 8 to failure, after 48 hours, they were still carrying neuromuscular fatigue from that gym workout. So put that in the context of a cycling athlete, it means that your legs are still fatigued 48 hours after that type of workout. And it was only 3 sets of 8 to failure. That same researcher got those athletes, freshened them up, waited a couple of weeks and got them then to do 3 sets of 4 repetitions at the same weight. So the weight was still 80% of 1 repetition maximum, but we're only doing 4 reps now. So non-failure training. Their HRV did not drop off as much as when they trained to failure. Great. But the thing with the jump test, it had returned pretty much to normal within 6 hours. So the neuromuscular fatigue from that gym workout had left within 6 hours, And so if you put that in the context of the cycling athlete, then that means like within 24 hours, you're effectively fully recovered from that type of gym workout. Again, if it was only 3 sets of 4 on the squats, you can get on the bike back again. Now, we have to take that, it's not, oh, Aaron means I'm going to recover in 6 hours time after.
Yeah.
No, because they only did 3 sets of 4 on one exercise,
Yes.
and it was lower body. So just all I'm trying to get you to appreciate.
Proves a point though.
It proves a point, is appreciating that if you don't train to failure, your recovery time is faster, but your strength outcomes are exactly the same as if you were training to failure.
Interesting.
So as a cycling athlete, why would you want the 48 hours, 72 hours of DOMs when if you don't train to failure, you don't get a sore, you recover faster, you can back up on the bike for your sessions more effectively.
Well, it's huge. It means you can maintain your high intensity interval training and one gym session per week on a weekly basis, I've found with this method.
Yep, definitely, which works perfect in season as
Yep.
well. Any athlete that's worked with me through in season, they sort of complain a little bit, but I'm like, hey, we just need one quality session,
Yep.
heavyweight, not to failure, per week in season, and that will be fantastic for maintenance for us from a strength perspective.
Okay, so let's just say I'm listening to this and I'm guilty of this going to failure, and now I want to change what I'm doing. What do you recommend to that person? How would they go about shifting what they're doing, sets and reps wise?
So what my recommendation first would be to establish what your 80% of one repetition maximum weight is. That'd be I would say that's the minimum weight you would want to work with for strength development in someone who's been to the gym before.
Okay.
Like you understand gym.
Yep.
That's your kind of line in the sand. You can lift heavier than that, but we say that's kind of the minimum weight we want it for strength development. So how do we determine that? There's a few ways you can determine it. The simplest way with least amount of math is find an exercise you want to train on.
Yep.
Work out the heaviest weight you can do for 8 reps. So you'll hit a failure point, 8
Yep.
reps. We would say that weight is your 80% of one repetition maximum. It's an estimate.
Yep.
So now that we know what that weight is, now we just need to train at that weight, not to failure. So we just come back from the 8 reps. Is it 4 repetitions on that exercise? Is it 5 repetitions? Is it 3? It doesn't matter, but what you're going to try and accumulate in your workout with respect to your lower body exercises is you need to achieve a minimum of 16 to 30 repetitions over the lower body at that intensity.
Right.
So that doesn't mean...
Why 16 to 30?
When I reviewed the literature in
Yep.
the space of non-failure training but getting quality strength outcomes, if I looked at the range of the repetitions that were occurring in the workout of the research, so the low end range was 16 reps and the high end range was sort of 30.
Okay.
On average, somewhere straight outside it. But I'm giving you guys a bit of a window to operate in as a minimum effective dose. So does that mean you have to do sets of 16 and 30 repetitions on a set? No.
Yeah.
Because we're lifting a heavy weight that we know it won't be more than 8 reps. Because if you're lifting more than 8, it's not 80% of 1 RM. So I'll give you an example. You have established the weight where you hit failure for 8 repetitions. Cool, we now know what 80% of 1 repetition maximum weight is. Why don't we do 3 sets of 5 on that exercise? What have we just accumulated on that with 3 sets of 5? 15 repetitions in total. Cool, and I'm saying your minimum that you need to achieve is accumulate 16 to 30 in a workout.
Yep.
So then you might go, okay, do I do another exercise for 3 sets of 5 at 80% of 1 repetition maximum? Maybe there's another one, and you just keep adding up. Well, how many reps have I done in total in my session? And you need to fall at least between 16 and 30.
Yep. Okay.
You can go over,
Yep.
and there's some research to suggest that is quite beneficial for strength, but I'm just giving you the minimal effective dose.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And then the person that's going to implement this, if they're doing 3 sets or 4 sets of something,
Or 7 sets.
7 sets. What's the estimated time to recovery between each repetition? Each set.
Each set. What we usually recommend for strength sets, where you are operating a heavy load, we suggest 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That can blow your workouts though. So me in practice with athletes that I work with, I typically operate around 2-minute rest. But if the exercise is fairly complex and carrying a bit of risk to it, so example, a deadlift or a barbell squat, yeah? Can we agree that they're a little bit more risky than the incline leg press? So incline leg press, I might still train you at 80% of 1 RM, but I might only give you 90 seconds to 2 minutes rest. But on the barbell squat or the deadlift, they're a more complex exercise with more things can go wrong. I will usually push that out to a 3-minute rest before you start your next set. But I would say absolute minimum, if you're operating these intensities, from me, would be 2-minute rest.
Yeah, okay, interesting. And just to summarise, like from what you've seen in the gym working with people when they've stepped away from failure and taken this approach, what have you seen?
It's interesting. There's normally like a healthy amount of skepticism. But then as we go through the protocol and then we look at the results with respect to the gym measurements that we're taking or the performance measurement relative to their sport. So cycling athlete might be like numbers that we're looking on today's plan.
Now training peaks.
Training peaks, for example, or Strava, and going, I'm getting like these PBs now. I'm breaking through these things, and you're like, it's not all gym doing that.
Yes.
It's collectively everything. But you sort of go like, then they get a healthy appreciation of what they've done, and that's kind of been the feedback I've gotten from RCA community members that I've worked with.
Yeah.
I'm going like, hey, like, what did you learn of our time together? They're like, I actually learned that I don't need to kill myself in the gym, and I don't have to train to failure. I just need to make sure the weight is heavy, but I'm tolerating it, taking it to a point where it doesn't kill me, and I still get the performance enhancement.
Yeah, that's interesting. So if somebody's watching this and they're like, hey, I want to dig a little bit deeper into this, you've put something together for us at the RCA?
Yes, we've got 3 modules on strength training for beginners, intermediate, and advanced.
With supporting video tutorials?
Sets, rep ranges, exercises, and it operates in the confines of what the research is saying that leads to performance enhancement in cycling athletes. So if you're hitting a dead end, you don't know what to do, I'd say it's a fantastic starting place. Not just because I developed it, but because it's...
I reckon it's pretty good as well.
But it's an evidence-based approach.
Yes, true. All right. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.